The burnt offering was a contract offering. This is the last offering, and we're almost done. Noah, when the covenant was ratified, did a burnt offering. Abraham, when the covenant was ratified, did a burnt offering. Moses, when the covenant was ratified, did a burnt offering. In fact, the whole Abrahamic covenant described this whole process of the burnt offering. God put him to sleep. The offerings were cut, and he passed through as a burning lamp. He brought it up again in Jeremiah when he said, "And I will give the men that have transgressed my covenant, which have not performed the words of the covenant which they have made before me, when they cut the calf in two and passed between the parts thereof." What was this? Well, here's what John Gill said about it. This was a custom used in making and confirming contracts or covenants. A calf or some other creature were cut in pieces, and the parts laid in order, and the covenantees passed between these parts, signifying thereby that if they did not fulfill the engagements they entered into, they imprecated to be cut to pieces as that creature was. It makes things a little more serious all of a sudden, doesn't it? The burnt offering. When the Bible says make a covenant, it means cut a covenant. The word make is karath, which means to cut. So it really should be translated cut a covenant. Covenant is berith. You guys know what that means. The only offering that was cut in pieces, guess what it was? The burnt offering. Contracts today come from the burnt offering. Follow this train of thought here, you guys. You would say cut the covenant. That's a phrase that's used in ancient times. Cut the offering. Cut a contract. Cut a deal. This is where the blood handshake comes from. That's why we call it the blood of the covenant. It's the burnt offering. These all come from the burnt offering, which is why it is called the blood of the covenant. So what the Hebrews would do, if they're doing a big contract, they do a burnt offering. It's how you ratify. We would call it notarization today. We've oversimplified it today. And what are the consequences, probably? Well, I'm telling you, if you're going to do a burnt offering, kill an animal, and go through this, you're probably not going to break that covenant. You're probably going to keep it. If you're buying a house, and you're probably going to do it. The way I like to describe it, when an animal dies, everything gets real all of a sudden. And you're just held to a different level of accountability.
Well, especially if you break that covenant and you're going to be cut in pieces.
Yes, exactly. It makes a difference. God's really serious about this stuff. We just notarize it, and if you break it, it's, we'll give you a little fine. But it's kind of the same thing. This was done for national offerings. That was the daily offerings. The Sabbath offerings. The new month offerings. And the feast offerings. Okay? This basically was done to confirm the covenants. So you think about what the tabernacle is doing, forgiving sin. And they started off confirming the covenant, and they ended confirming the covenant. All the feast days did the same thing. You're ratifying the covenant once again, because we're sinners. That's why you would do this. That's nationally. Personal offerings after childbirth, well, that's the curse, you guys. To cleanse open wounds. To cleanse from leprosy. Defiling by a dead body. And for the Nazirite vow, that's a contract directly at the bottom. So again, this confirms the covenant. Now the burnt offering, if you think about it this way, it confirms the covenant. That's a ratification of the covenant. But it also renews a covenant. Why do we need to renew a covenant? Because we're in breach of contract. We violated an obligation, engagement, or duty. When we break God's covenant, that's what the burnt offering was for. It renewed that covenant. There were 13 statutes. Shall be a daily offering morning and evening. Wealthy are to offer a bull. You can see how some of these are national and some of these are personal. The middle class shall offer a sheep or a goat. The poor shall offer 2 turtle doves or 2 young pigeons. It must be a male, and it must be without blemish. Shall kill the animal at the door of the tabernacle, just like the others. Shall place your hand on the head of the offering to kill it. That's just a description of how you kill it. Shall cut the animal in pieces. That's relating it back to that tradition Abraham did. But look, do you see how this is a good example of the spirit of the law. This is not following the letter of what Abraham did. Is it? But it's following the spirit. And that's how we need to understand God's law. That'll help us see it in America today. And it's all over the place in America. We're just doing it wrong. Some of the things we're doing that are more in the spirit of the law is okay. But there's kind of a gray area. We got to decide where that line is. You know, this is an example in my mind of the letter of the law versus the spirit of the law. It changed all of a sudden here. They're not actually walking through the pieces like the tradition said. The priest shall sprinkle the blood around the brazen altar. It shall be wholly consumed except the skin. The skin goes to pay for the priest. God always pays the priest for their work. It's actually one of his commandments. The skin is left for the priest. The penalty is excommunication for not following the burnt offering.